Right, today on the Philanthropy United podcast, we are joined by Frank DeBlasi, the founder and CEO of the Ballin Foundation. Frank, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Okay, so we've obviously worked with you in the past, and we love everything you're doing, but you are a relatively new charity, and you've got a pretty cool story.
We are new to, I would say, Arizona and the Southwest, but our legacy started in New York, where I'm originally from. Back in 2007, we launched what was known as Boss Fest. Today has developed into the Ballin Foundation. So new to the Southwest and the desert, but we've been around since 2007.
It's amazing.
I was diagnosed with testicular cancer at that time, which led me to create originally our nonprofit foundation.
Okay, so explain how you came up with wanting to start a nonprofit and what drove you to create Balls Fest, which is now the Ballin Foundation.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was diagnosed back in 2007, I was in New York City, and the hospital I was receiving my surgery and treatment for, I was surrounded by young adults at times and children, and I would often see that they didn't have the support or resources that I had. And I was so fortunate between my family, my parents, my friends, etc., that I had all sorts of support systems in place. But I would take mental notes and look around me and see who didn't. And I knew at that time I wanted to, once I got over my battle, I wanted to create a nonprofit that lifts the spirits of children and young adults that are battling all forms of cancer, not just testicular cancer. So
Question,
that's what.
How old were you when you started?
So
When you were diagnosed, rather.
I was diagnosed at 30.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So young man in New York with testicular cancer. Get teased often, when you have one ball and you're,
you only need one.
You only need one. Both work. I'm not going to show it to you today, but I took those moments and I tried to go with the flow and use humor as a way to get through some challenging days. And I often, all of us, when you get news like that, you tend to maybe go online to see who else has walked these steps before. And I've teased before, I didn't really have too many options when I looked up to see who had testicular cancer. Lance Armstrong is the most popular one, but we know Lance's story now. He's pretty much shunned from society.
Yep.
Tom Green, who is a D-list actor, not really have much credibility. And then Scott Hamilton, who, Olympic figure skaters got the gold, but you don't want to hear that a male figure skater also had testicular cancer. So I don't really have too many idols to look up to. So rather than look outward, I looked inward and I said, Frank, you need to go with this and need to perhaps look at the positives and pros of being a cancer survivor. And that's what I did. And I thought creating a foundation was the very best way to do that.
So who was your first baller?
My first baller, oh my God. My first baller, back in New York, I want to say it was 2013, Gabby Wolpert was our first baller.
How old was she?
Gabby at that time, I love Gabby. Gabby, I believe, was maybe 8 or 9.
Okay.
8 or 9. She was our first baller back in 2013. And she now is a teenager, beautiful gal, well past remission, doing well, stay close with her family. Her family very much involved with the Ballin Foundation in Saratoga Springs, New York. We've gifted well over 100 ballers over the years, but we've touched the lives of many, many other ballers who haven't been, I would say, the direct recipients of a major gift, but we still provide all sorts of resources and activities in the hospitals that we serve.
What's the most baller gift you've given so far?
The most baller gift we've given so far, we've had quite a few, so I would say we've been fortunate to have Guy Fieri involved.
Ooh.
We've had Lainey Robillard, a baller in New York. She loved the Food Network. She loved cooking. May have had a little crush on Guy, so we were able to coordinate.
Wait, that's got to be a joke, right? Nobody has a crush on Guy Fieri.
Maybe not a crush on his cooking. So we were fortunate to connect with Guy, and we had a trip out to the Bay Area, and we were able to sit in on tapings of Guy's grocery games.
Oh, how neat!
That was super cool. We've had also with Hallie Hansen, an Arizona baller. She loved to dance, and we were able to coordinate a visit with Dancing with the Stars. We were able to sit in on a live taping, which was really cool. And we also put the Hansen family up for 2 nights in Beverly Hills. We were able to do her first shopping spree, which was really cool. We've gifted 2 cars to ballers. So the cars have been great. Guy Fieri. We've also had a Michael Bublé experience, which was wonderful, for Casey Page, an Arizona baller. He's old school. So this boy, Casey Page, is only 13, but he's such an old man at times, and he loved Michael Bublé. So we were able to hook him up with a family trip to Las Vegas, and he was able to see Michael Bublé after the show, which was wonderful. Just a little tidbit on this story. Michael Bublé told me that, Frank, the story is amazing, what you do, I love. I'm able to spend some time with your baller after the show. I'll have more time with him rather than meeting with him before the show where I won't have as much time. So to have someone on that level tell me, like, hey, I have more time, let's do that. You don't really see that or hear that much.
That's
I feel like they would usually try to shuffle you along as quick as possible, like in and out.
He was awesome. He gave time to the family, took photos afterwards, and even at the end of his concert, he dedicated his song to Ballin. Yeah, so it was really,
it's so meaningful.
really awesome. Really awesome.
What an impact.
That's
so that
really
was,
awesome.
I would say, a Cliff Notes version of some of our best gifts. As much as I hate them, the Dallas Cowboys were amazing. They provided a baller of ours, a Robert from New York, an amazing baller experience with Dallas Cowboys, which is great. The New Orleans Saints have provided a great baller experience. Countless other baller experiences that we've had. We try to really get to know the baller and their story and create some sort of customized gift, or I would say experience for them that's long lasting. Not just, hey, here's a trip to Disneyland, good luck and beat cancer. Our story, what we try to do is we get to know these ballers. I spend at least 3 or 4 hospital home visits with them, get to know them and their story, and we become like a brother, big brother type to many ballers, and that's what we're doing. We're building a ballerhood, and for me, I don't have my own children, so I kind of adopt these ballers to become my own. But the difference between us, and there's no shortage of wonderful nonprofits out there, but I think the difference between us and other nonprofits is that we build relationships with their ballers and their families too, because unfortunately, most of these ballers do relapse.
Really?
So you want to,
What's
stay.
that rate? Do you know?
I don't know the rate, Jessica, but it's very often. It's more often than we want to see. So I always tell the families that, hey, we're with you from the time you get diagnosed through treatment, after treatment, and then unfortunately, if there is a re-diagnosis, like, we'll be there for you again.
Yeah.
And for us, like, we take a lot of pride in saying that we build relationships with these ballers, and it's wonderful to see them grow up over time as well, and you kind of help them with suggestions on real life problems and college applications and applying for a job, and I love what we're doing. I absolutely love it.
So does your phone literally go off every 5 seconds because you have such a big ballerhood of people who...
Phone is active, so between...
You need a dedicated line.
It's funny you say that, Kendall. My day job is a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, taking care of my clients first and foremost, and that for sure, phone is busy. Mm-hmm. And I often need to make sure my phone's charged throughout the day and evening, because then my after-hours job is being the founder of the Baller Dream Foundation. I'm fortunate to have such an amazing team as well to help me with this. But baller families in the 6 states that we make an impact in, we're constantly in touch with them.
And which states are you in?
So we are in our legacy, our initial, where we were birthed, if you will, is in New York. We're in New Jersey. We're in Alabama. We're in Nevada. And we're Arizona. And we're going to be in California in 2021. So I would say 6 states for sure. COVID may have kind of stunted our plan to be in 2 other states, but right now we're really focusing on where we are at the moment and growing within those markets, but definitely have intentions to grow to more.
So let's talk about your fundraising. How do you fundraise? How do people get involved with you? What is it the Baller Dream Foundation needs? Yeah,
for sure. That's an excellent question. Thank you, Kendall, for asking that. So for the Baller Dream Foundation, I would say the first thing you do is follow us on Instagram and Facebook and our website.
It's so funny for a guy who's not on any social media.
I don't have...
for people to follow them.
I'm kind of old school. I don't have my own personal
I have
social media.
it. I don't use it.
But
I know. I'm just poking fun. Every time I go on LinkedIn to look up Frankie's not there.
I get teased often about being an old man regarding social media, but we have a great social media director at Baller Dream, Gene Watson. And then we have your team, who's been wonderful in supporting us and giving us ideas that I hadn't thought about before. So kudos to the Personalized Solutions team here. You've been wonderful, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and looking forward to building upon this. But I would say follow us first and foremost on social media. Our website is current. It's not dusty. It's not dated. We have everything up to speed on who we are, what we're doing, and the impact we're making. We have events. You know, we say that they're epic events because we invite our ballers to the events, and before we gift them, we roast them. And I don't know any other nonprofit that roasts 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds. And
it's definitely not your ordinary event. There's definitely not a nonprofit event like the ones that have been done that we've been to. They're fun. They're engaging. You laugh. You cry. You get every sense of it.
You get to meet a lot of new people that, I don't know, like, there's so many boring charity events, and yours never fall into that category.
Oh, well, thank you. I take a lot of pride in that. You know, I attended a lot of events like you have, and they all have the same agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, growing up, I always just wanted to be different and be a standout. So when it comes to our events, I never wanted someone to come and say, oh boy, here's like another event, typical auction, rubber chicken, awkward dancing, and then we go home. Like, that is not, as you've seen, what we do and who we are. And, you know, a number of people tell us how refreshing our events are because they're unique, they're different. Kendall, you mentioned you laugh, you cry. It's a heavy topic for sure, and I'm not discounting the emotion challenges you have with cancer, but I have tended to look at humor as a way to get through some tough days in my life. So at times, we want to make these ballers feel that there's hope, there's progress ahead of them, and a pathway to a cancer-free life, and we have some fun with them and tease them, and that's what, you know, at Baller Dream Foundation, that is, I would say, a staple of who we are, and it's very emotional, but we're going to have, you know, fun with it as well.
Well, I found it makes the event more engaging because then you have the people at the tables laughing at what's going on and making comments about it. Even the baller themselves is laughing hysterically as you make fun of them in like a lighthearted way. Everybody just leaves with a smile on their face with the tear stain.
Exactly.
It starts with getting to know the baller and their family. So as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I spend at least 3 or 4 visits at their home or hospital with them.
And how long is a typical visit?
I would say anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. Okay. And I'm taking copious notes. From the time I walk into their home, I'm taking all sorts of written notes and mental notes about the experience, because what I do is I take all my notes and I create then a narrative for the Baller Dream Foundation roast into one, I would say, 10-minute story. Each baller gets about 10 minutes on the throne with us, and I am able to take all my notes and share with the crowd a Reader's Digest version or a Cliff Notes version of who the baller is and their fun facts and their stories, and most of it is teasing, but then I wind it down to sharing with the crowd how amazing each and every one of these ballers are and their strength through such challenging times.
What I love too is that you never know the specific ailment, right? Like, you'll mention it once and say, this is the type of cancer it is. But you're not going into brutal details of just how terrible the day-to-day of that treatment and that diagnosis is. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right, Jessica. And I purposely do that because I think, and maybe I take it for granted, I assume the crowd knows that these children have been through hell and are going through hell with intense chemotherapy and radiation treatment. So there's no need for me to kind of highlight those doom days that they have at the hospital.
Well, I feel like that's not what people want to hear. They want to learn about who is getting awarded. They want to know their story and feel like they know them. And I feel like by the time you're done with your 10-minute roast, you really know who that child is.
Exactly. And what I try to avoid at all costs is having that television screen behind me where they show the kid in chemo, the violins playing, and everyone at the dinner is like crying their eyes out.
The Sarah McLachlan song in the background.
That is not who we are. I mean, you remember so Samantha when at our Baller Dream Foundation dinner, we were playing Red Hot Chili Peppers for her. And like, that's who she is. And I get to know all their passions in life, their fun facts, their stories. I really want them to feel that those 10, 12 minutes that they're on stage with me, that it's all about them and their story, not about, you know, the drugs that they're on or the chemotherapy in their veins. I want people to know that they're people too and that they have a great story to tell.
Gosh, I had no idea that a lot of them had to go back through treatment later in life. Did you ever have anything come back?
No, I had testicular cancer surgery, and then I had 90 days of radiation treatment.
Okay.
radiation treatment, and I have follow-ups. So I am a patient of the Mayo Clinic, and I have at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, checkup to make sure that I'm in the clear. You know, I'm in remission. I'm past my 5-year point, but as a cancer survivor, it's always in your mind.
Back of the head, right?
It's always in the back of your head. So if you have an ache that just won't go away, or maybe a cold that just is stubborn, you start having those thoughts like, uh-oh, am I having a relapse?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when you do have that remission celebration after 5 years, yes, it's a wonderful feat. I'm not discounting that. But as a survivor, it is always in the back of your mind. It always is, for sure.
Prior, let's talk about your story for a few minutes. Before you got diagnosed, were you leading a high-stress lifestyle? Were you eating poorly? Did you have environmental factors that you feel like could have led you down that road?
I'm glad you asked that, Jessica, about that, because I was what I thought was healthy as an ox. I was 30 years old, working out, eating well, doing well in life, feeling well. I had no symptoms at all.
So how did you figure out?
Well, how I did figure out is that in my left testicle, I hope the crowd's not getting too...
This is life.
It's life, right?
Real life.
So in my left testicle...
This might save somebody else's life,
yeah, for
so
sure.
let's dive in.
So my left testicle, I felt a marble in my left testicle, and I was just curious like what this was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it for at least a couple of months, this marble, and it was like a pea in my left testicle. And for months I had it, but I didn't say anything to anyone about it. You know, we get stubborn, we get a little macho, we think it's nothing. But for 3 months, I definitely felt this. And then on a random Sunday afternoon, living in New York City, I felt some sort of emotional omen come across me that something in the world was wrong. Just something in the world was wrong. Now, I had no back pain, which tends to have a symptom of testicular cancer.
Interesting.
But we all have. Who doesn't have back pain?
Right, exactly.
So lower back pain, a heaviness like in the groin area. I wasn't feeling any other symptoms at all. But I had this emotional omen come across. Something was wrong in the world. So that was a Sunday afternoon, Kendall. That night, my dad, who was a doctor, rest in peace, Dad. He was a doctor. I called that night. I'm a mama's boy, so I tend to call mom and dad almost every night, even that now 43 years old. So I called my dad that night, and we were just kind of making some small talk. And then before we hung up, I said, "Hey, Dad, by the way," and I said, "I got this like marble in my left testicle. I'm not sure what it is." And my dad, who's like old school stoic, Sicilian from Brooklyn, didn't really have that lovey-doveyness to him. All of a sudden, like his emotions changed and his body language on the phone changed, and it made me nervous. And his first question is, "Well, how long have you had it?" And I got so nervous by his tone. I was like, "I don't know, a couple days," when I knew for sure I had it like at least 3 months. So he asked me all sorts of questions, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come home tomorrow and I'll examine you?" And you don't want your dad, examining your own testicles, but at that time, like you're nervous and you're like, "I'll have anyone examine my testicles right now just to make sure that I don't have anything wrong."
Sure.
So I had an omen that something was wrong that night, Kendall and Jessica. So I had a week of travel booked for work, and I called our company travel agent and I canceled the whole week, even without getting tested or examined. I just had this omen that something was wrong. So the next day I go home, my dad examined me, and he's like, "Hey, that's just a cyst, but let's go get a sonogram just to make sure that everything is okay." So we go get a sonogram that afternoon, and sure enough, they showed me the results, and it looked like mayhem in my left testicle.
What stage were you?
Stage 1 going to 2. Like at stage 1.5,
Early,
they told me.
thank God.
So what they said was, "Hey, what your dad diagnosed you with and what you were feeling for months, that was just a cyst. We found something else in your testicle that's more concerning."
Wow.
So that little pebble or pea that I was feeling was maybe just like a red herring from God. It wasn't the actual
like
tumor.
a no big deal thing.
That pebble or pea, what I was feeling, led me to get this checked out, and they found something else, which was a nice sized tumor in the middle of my left testicle, which is what was the cancer. Then 3 days later, had surgery for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God you listened to your intuition of like that spiritual feeling. A lot of people ignore that. For example, my mom battled cancer in 2019, and as an only child, I was like full on taking care of the whole thing, but she had weird swelling and they couldn't figure out what was going on. It's your lymphatic system, and no one ever thought to check for breast cancer. And then by the time it was diagnosed, she was late stage 3, on her way to stage 4, and they were like, "This tumor is the size of, I think, a golf ball, like huge." And so she's totally fine now, but it was a brutal, of course, journey.
It was a brutal year.
Oh, it was really, really rough. And I had just gotten here. I was fresh off the boat, and I'm trying to build a business, and now I've got my mom as a roommate, and she's super duper sick. It's really scary, but she ignored all of the signs. You know what I'm saying?
You listen to your heart, you listen to your body, and I learned my lesson with that. You mentioned environmental, so that was back in 2007. I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. That subsequent year, my ex-girlfriend, my mom, my dad were also diagnosed with cancer. So 4 of us got diagnosed within a short amount of time with practically no family history. I talked to our oncologist and I said, "Doctor, how can this happen? You know, me, my ex-girlfriend, my mom, my dad, 4 of us get diagnosed. What are your thoughts?" And he said, "Frank, I think it was environmental." He's like, "The 4 of you get sick within a year. Maybe it's the water, maybe it's the air, maybe it's something you're eating." He's like, "I think it's environmental." And I said, "You know what? I think I'm getting out of here." So I left. I moved west.
You landed here.
I landed here and restarted my life, and no looking back. Absolutely no looking back. So, this cancer episode happened for a reason, and I tried to make the best of it. Created the Ballin Dream Foundation.
And you've impacted hundreds of kids because of it.
Right.
So, and we have a lot more. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of children and young adults with cancer, so I feel like we're going to be around, for a long time.
So how can people who are listening to our podcast, how can they help the Ballin Dream Foundation? Is it donations? Is it sending gifts? What is the best thing?
Can they sponsor a baller?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say donations, of course, of all sizes are welcome. So we appreciate that for sure. But there's other ways you can make an impact, and you can sponsor a baller. Reach out to us if you're interested in learning on how you can make an impact directly to a baller and their family. But there's opportunities where we can introduce a donor to a baller, and you can provide all sorts of gifts and resources to them. You can also help volunteer. When we're allowed to go back into hospitals, we have all sorts of activity sessions, Lego building sessions with the boys and girls. We do art therapy, we do building slime with them, which they love.
Oh, slime is so fun.
It is fun. It is fun. There's ways to, I would say, be visible within the Ballin Dream Foundation without having to make a donation. I welcome anyone, again, to follow us online to see when we have events and how else they can be.
What about if you own a business? How can you get involved in that capacity? Businesses need tax write-offs, so...
We would welcome opportunities for business owners and their employees to be, I would say, champions of the Ballin Dream Foundation. I know there's no shortage of nonprofits out there, but we kindly ask for those that have a business and can help make decisions on behalf of their employees to funnel maybe some funds our way.
Yeah, or even a connection of, hey, my program does this, they match all donations up to X amount, and a lot of the employer matching things are really beneficial.
For those out there that are employees of a company like that, perhaps connect us with someone in HR. That for us is a wonderful opportunity for them to hear our story directly, and I could share with that HR rep or CFO type on how they can be, I would say, beneficial and impactful for the Ballin Dream Foundation.
Where do you see the organization within, say, the next 5 years?
Well, if you asked me that a year ago prior to COVID, I probably had a more grand answer to that in terms of our growth, in terms of markets. We're currently in 5 to 6 states, and I had wanted to double that within the next 5 years. But realistically, with COVID, it's given us a chance to re-examine all of our life and all of our value propositions and game plans. And at the moment, we're going to focus on our current markets and being the best we can within those current markets with an eye on growth in Southern California for sure. And we're always open to doing individual events or dinners in newer markets. But, Jessica, I'm hoping 5 years from now in the current markets that we make an impact, I am hoping that we're going to be one of the premier nonprofit organizations in each of those markets.
So are we going to clone you so that we can double the markets? How will that work?
I know. I wish I can clone myself and be in all these markets all the time. But we have a great team. There's 10 of us on our team that are trying to, I would say, promote our mission as much as possible. We build relationships with these ballers, and we have executive directors in almost each of these markets that are cloned, if you will, to do what we do best, and that's get to know these ballers and their families. I wish there's a part of me that I could do this full time, and maybe later in life I will. But in the meantime, I'm going to do the best I can, no matter where these ballers are I have the bandwidth, emotional bandwidth, to visit with them when I can. So
that was my last question too, is how do you emotionally handle
all of the
this?
children, all of them?
Because I know just for one human being, my mom, it was really, really taxing.
You know, when I went through it, and then mom and dad, you see a parent struggle with cancer or any type of life-threatening disease, it definitely takes a toll on you. I also lived through 9/11, and I've seen a lot of hurt over the years, and I don't want to say numbs you, it toughens you up for sure, and it prepares you for lots of emotions in life. And I'll tell you, I've had plenty of cries with ballers, and we've lost ballers, over the last couple of years. We've lost probably a dozen that we've gotten close with, and each one of them hurts very much. And I have my private moments for sure where I get teary-eyed and choked up for sure. But when I meet with these families and these ballers and their siblings, you need to show them strength and positivity. So when I meet with them, I'm still very uplifting and strong for them because they need that at that moment. If I came in like a babbling mess, it probably wouldn't help them.
That's your game day. That's your game day.
So my game day face with them for sure is staying strong and positive in what is perhaps the most moment of despair. But I definitely have my private moments at night, usually maybe on the car ride back to my home or on a flight home. I definitely have my moments of realism where it hurts. It definitely hurts.
How do you find your ballers?
Yes. So we work closely with a number of children's hospitals in the 5 states that we are currently in, and they refer us the ballers.
Okay.
We also get referrals from individuals in the community saying, hey, Frank, I have a niece. Hey, Frank, I have a neighbor whose son is sick. So we take referrals from all. I like working with the hospitals because they are day in, day out. They know who, now they're all very deserving, but there are some ballers who really need an uplifting opportunity. So we rely on child life advisors, oncologists, pediatric oncologists, the nurses, social workers. Here locally, it's Phoenix Children's and the Banner Network of hospitals that we have built such great relationships with, a trusting relationship that when they call me and say, hey, little Johnny, little Jane, this is their story, they know to completely turn the opportunity over to us and that we're going to take care of them.
Question. So you recently gifted, and we fortunately got to take part in it, a card to a cancer warrior who was over the typical age of being able to get a gift. Not your age, because you're very, very inclusive. How did you end up coming across Samantha and her story? And that's such an impacting one. And we actually have another video on our page for anyone who wants to see of gifting that actual card that day.
Thank you, Jessica. That's a great question. We're often asked, hey, where do you find your ballers and what are your limitations? So I'm an Italian guy from New York. It's hard for me to say no to anybody. So I hate to create limitations and red lines, but in the nonprofit law space, you need to have distinctions. So we go from 0 to 25 in terms of our gifting candidates. Most wish-granting organizations stop at 18. So we're fortunate that we're able to work with those older
7 extra years.
Older teens, such as Samantha, who is not eligible for a gift from other major wish-granting organizations, and we were brought in and said, hey, Frank, we know Baller Dream Foundation can step up and help Samantha, an older baller. A hospital recommended, referred Samantha to us. Trust me, I love gifting all of them of all ages, but the teens I really find fun to gift because they're often overlooked. And most nonprofits, and the media, they want the shiny 5-year-old that's, princess looking. I love the teens. They're going through so much as it is in their life without cancer.
Being a teen is brutal, yeah.
Brutal. And then being a teen and having cancer, come on now. So for me, I have so much more, I would say, fulfillment when we gift a teen because they're going through some awkward years as it is. And then also getting to know their stories, and I mentioned getting to know them. There's more detail. They can speak more. It's hard to roast a 5-year-old on stage. So the teenagers I love because they can communicate. They have thoughts. They have passions in life. They tell me what they want to be when they grow up and give their reasons. They have opinions. So I'm on stage with them, and you've seen the banter that we have and the connectivity. I love the teens.
Yeah.
I love gifting teens.
Well, in the teens, they're more interactive with it. I find when it was the little ones, the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, it's more you conversing with their parents, which is still great, but it's not as entertaining, I would say, as it being an 18-year-old, the 22-year-old. But they're cute.
They're cute
They're
for
so
sure.
cute.
They're certainly cute. And another aspect I love about the teens is they tend to roast me back. And I love that back and forth. And that camaraderie for me is so fun. The 4-year-old, the 5-year-olds, kind of, as I said,
Not quite there yet.
they get a little shy when they see lights, camera, action, and a couple hundred people in front of them. So they definitely go into, their little shell. The teenagers, it's opportunity. Our baller ceremonies are on Instagram or Facebook Live, so they get kind of jazzed up knowing that people are watching. They get dressed up as well. They got the red carpet. So we really want all of them to feel like a VIP.
That's awesome. Well, if anyone is interested, all of the information for getting in touch with Baller Dream Foundation will be in the information box below, as well as on the episode details if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, etc., etc. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jessica.
We
Thank you,
always
Kendall.
love hanging out with you.
We have fun together.
We do.
We have a lot of fun.
Cheers to some amazing 2021 events.
For sure. Thank you.
Bye.